Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with James Introcaso from well, you're an adept at the DMs Guild, World Builder blog. You
Yeah,
also you have a podcast network. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
there is, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This is awesome.
I'm excited to have you. Like I said, I've been stalking Guild Adepts recently. Yeah, the whole thing about these daily live chats is bringing people on to talk about nerdy, fun things, and especially, our favorite thing, tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. So what better place to go than into the DMs Guild and the Adept program where you guys are creating cool stuff?
Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. I love being part of the Adept program. It's essentially every single day talking about fun, weird, crazy D&D ideas with a group of like-minded people, which is amazing. And they're all super smart, creative individuals. So it's really fun conversations we're
I've heard stories about the chat.
Yeah, we do. We have a Slack channel where we sort of discuss our projects, but we also, we're also just discussing things outside of the Adept program as well, like what's happening in D&D. Oh my God, did you get Xanathar's guide? What are you going to play next? Let's do this. Let's do that. Hey, look who's on the D&D stream right now. Like, look what's going on. Somebody's being interviewed over here. So like, it's really, really fun for us to be able to just talk to each other all day about nerdy stuff, which is great. Right now, Rudy Rutenberg and Satine Phoenix are out in Hawaii, and they're posting pictures of themselves in Hawaii when it was snowing, on the East Coast where I live last week. So, we like to take jabs at each other there as well. It's pretty fun.
Well, that's what it's all about. Where are you at on the East Coast?
So I'm in New Jersey in a town called Cherry Hill. It's right outside of Philadelphia.
Dude, are you fucking kidding me? I could hit you with a stone. We could
I
be
know.
we could be doing this in the same room, honestly. I live in Williamstown.
Oh, really? Holy,
Yeah.
we should get let's get together and play some games, man. This would be awesome, right?
Absolutely. All right, guys, I gotta go. I'm gonna go over James now. Like 20 minutes from me.
Oh, I know. This is awesome. I thought I detected a Philadelphia accent when we first started talking. So, yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I didn't detect any accent with you, so I figured.
Yeah, I did. I grew up in Collingswood, right outside here. And so when I say things like home and phone, it sort of comes out a little bit. You can definitely hear it, but I wasn't so ingrained in the Philly side. I wish I had more of like a regional Philly accent because I think it's so awesome.
I I went to school in Haddon Township.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I have friends who, went to Haddon Township.
Do you know Nicole Amato? Well, it was Klein, but now Amato.
Nicole Amato. I don't. I definitely knew a Nicole Klein, though.
Yeah, same person.
Yeah, yeah.
She just got married, so
Right. Of course. Of course. Yeah. That's crazy.
from Cardboard Fortress.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Ah,
Small world, small. Forget it, guys. Now we're probably not going to talk about D&D at all. We're just going to talk about like who we
right.
knew and
Exactly. Yeah. Did you ever go to the Wawa here and that
yeah, up
thing?
on the hill, back at the creek.
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
Totally. Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm not kidding. We should get together and play some games. I would love that. That would be awesome.
I'm not kidding either. It seems like the thing to do.
Definitely. Definitely.
But so back to the actual D&D stuff, I guess. These guys aren't going to care about the Jersey
No,
life.
no, that's true.
I will say though, and every time like people rag on Jersey, I'm like, I've never had to run from a fire. Like the closest we had to an earthquake, I think I slept through.
Uh-huh.
We don't really get hurricanes or tornadoes or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're where we are in Jersey, which is more inland, yeah, you don't really ever get any sort of natural disaster, just pollution. Just pollution. Most of that's coming over though from Pennsylvania and New York. So I'm not even gonna take credit for that pollution.
There you go. Look, I strategically picked the location of where I live
Mhm.
because once this global warming thing really kicks in, I'm looking to have some really sweet beachfront property. I think I'm just far enough away that I'm gonna get really close.
Yeah, there you go. That's great. Yeah, it's perfect, you know? It's really good. I like it.
So, how long? When did you start the Don't Split the Party podcast network? I'll bring it back to D&D and gaming.
Yeah. So, okay. So this is I was on another podcast network for a long time. For about 3 years, I was part of this podcast network called the Tome Show Network. And the title podcast is the Tome Show. It's actually all on one feed. It's an amazing podcast network. It's the longest running Dungeons and Dragons podcast is the Tome Show, other than like the official D&D podcast itself. This guy named Jeff Greiner was on it, and it was during the 5e playtest. I was like, okay, I really want to hear more about the playtest. I want to hear more about this news that's coming out. Nobody really had a weekly news podcast at that time for D&D, and Jeff had the closest thing. So I wrote to him. I wrote to a guy named Mike Shea, who runs the website Sly Flourish. He also hosted a podcast at the time, the Critical Hits podcast for the website Critical Hits, and asked them for advice. And Jeff said, well, what show do you want to make? And I was like, this is the show. And he said, why don't you come make it with us? I've been looking for something like that. I haven't had the time to make it myself. Like, come make it with us. So it was super nice of him. Super amazing dude. Let me do that. And then from there, I launched another podcast on that network called Gamer to Gamer, where I talked to, it was very similar to what you're doing here, like talk to people like Wolfgang Bauer and Jeremy Crawford and all kinds of gaming people to sort of hear them and hear their story. And then me and another guy on the network named Rudy Basso, who had a show, we sort of got this idea of like, we wanted to start our own thing because we had an interest in pursuing sort of sponsors more aggressively, monetizing a little bit more, but then also exploring other RPGs beyond D&D in our conversations. And so you know, we had an amicable split with Jeff. We're still like amazing friends. He's an amazing dude. And we so last year on January 1st, 2017, we launched Don't Split the Podcast Network with the first episode of Tabletop Babble, which is a show where I talk to people about role-playing games. I interview creators. We talk about news. We have panels when we talk about all kinds of great stuff, everything from DM advice to the news of the day. And that's been going strong. And then we have a bunch of other podcasts on the network. So Rudy hosts a podcast called Game O'Clock. It's all about video games, and he dives deep into a genre each month and like talks about the best and the worst and the history and the future. And then he and I have a podcast we produce together. It's a radio play called Have Spellbook Will Travel. It's like Order of the Stick for your ears. And there's two actual play podcasts, Venture Maidens and Dames and Dragons. They're both 5e. Those are awesome. We have the DM's Deep Dive with Mike Shea, which is a monthly DM advice podcast. And then we have a podcast called the Newbie DM Minicast. We just launched it today. Very first episode came out. So, so we're a network of podcasts. And essentially, we like to let the creators do whatever it is they want to do. It's a way for sponsors to buy in. It's a way to support each other with advertisements. And it's a way to, have lots of friends to draw on to talk about stuff. I'm sure you know what that's like, right?
I heard a lot of dirty words in there, man. Sponsorship, want to make money, other games of size D&D.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps to be real when you're sort of talking about this stuff. This stuff is a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of work, and we're not out there killing it. And it's not like we're taking money from, like, I don't know, Monsanto, right? Or some crazy evil corporation. Like Cobalt Press is one of our sponsors. It's people that
I thought you were going to say they're an evil corporation.
Yeah, exactly. So, people that we love and we support their products anyway are people we reach out to. And, all of our shows on our network, they always have the option of saying no. Like, it's like, hey, I don't really like this sponsor. I don't want their money, or I can't really talk about them because I don't know what they do. They have the option to say, I don't want to read the copy for this or whatever. So, that doesn't really ever come up because we try to pick sponsors that we know are good and great. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of effort and like, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with monetizing what you're doing. People get the content totally free, and you can fast forward through a pre-roll ad pretty quickly if you need to, if it's that offensive to you, right? So, but yeah, that's how we did it, and you know, I love D&D. Fifth edition is like my favorite game. I design for it all the time. I play it all the time. But I also love other games, and I think playing other games can inform your D&D experience, can help you design for stuff. So, you know, it's like when I also make TV commercials. So like I try to watch TV commercials other than the ones I'm making, right? To get ideas, to get inspiration, to know what the industry's doing. It's the same thing when you play role-playing games, you know? See what everybody else is doing. See what this Starfinder thing that sold out at Gen Con is about, right? So yeah, it's fun.
That's like one of the questions I asked Mike Merles when we finally got him on, was it's like, do you play other games? And like an addendum to that was, are you allowed to play other games? I know people that work for beer distributors, like they can't be seen in public drinking another beer.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. I think, you know, in some respect, I can see when like a corporation would be like, no, don't do this, or, you know, don't be caught dead doing X, Y, or Z. But like, I honestly, I want to see the game designer who's making the games I love playing other games, right? Because I feel like that's a smart way to design. So it gives me faith when I hear Mike Merles and Jeremy and Chris Perkins and whoever else are playing other games, that like they're having a good time. And plus, they work with a lot of freelancers. You know, Rob Schwalb is a dude who's worked on fifth edition, but he's also got his own game out there, Shadow of the Demon Lord. And like, I love to imagine everybody with Rob Schwalb running the game, like all these people from Wizards of the Coast playing Shadow of the Demon Lord with him at a convention or something, right? I'm sure it's happened. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and that is like the great thing about this industry. It's very close niche, and people, you know, people get along for the most part. And like, even when I've had other, you know, other publishers on, and they're talking to me and they're like, you know, I love it when people support our games, but not so much when they bash other people's games, because even if you don't like that game or that experience that it gives, you'll probably be talking about someone who's my friend and made that game, even if they're quote unquote a competitor.
Right, right, exactly. And I think, you know, honestly, like there's enough games to go around. You can play them, you know, and you can read them, and you can, however you get enjoyment out of a gaming supplement. Like, I think it's okay if you've got the money. Like I see the big shelf of books behind you there, right? You know, you're playing lots of games, and that's great. And so the same way beer distributor, right? Like that's even crazier to me, is like a beer distributor should be allowed to drink other beer, because one, they're going to drink a lot of beer in their lifetime, right? So it'd be crazy to think that they're not ever going to try another beer. And then two, like they, you know, if they drink something else, it might give them an idea for like, you know, this beer was made with rose petals, and like maybe I could use rose petals in this different way or something like that. So yeah, I'm fully in support as well.
Yeah, you know, it speaks to an open mind, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys recently had a big release on the DMs Guild, I hear.
Yes, yeah, we did. So we released Xanathar's Guide to Everything, the DM's Guild Adepts. Big collaboration between 9 of us, and Rudy Rutenberg was sort of the elder brain behind it all. James Hake helped edit it. A guy named Rich Lescaflair did a ton of work in design, and also then in laying it out, and wrote most of our Xanathar notes, that are, you know, essentially like the little Donald Trump tweet commentary that sort of runs throughout from the Xanathar. So, you know, we had a lot of fun putting that together. It's obviously a companion to. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I call it Xanathar's Guide to Everything? It's Xanathar's Lost Notes to Everything Else. It's a companion to Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Wow. And so, so essentially, but it's 25 new subclasses for the classes in the player's handbook, and then it's a bunch of DM options. There's new backgrounds. There's a new race. there's rule supplements, and then James Hake helped or didn't help, he crafted a sort of mini adventure that takes place in Chult. So if you're playing through Tomb of Annihilation, you can use this adventure. It ties into Tomb of Annihilation a little bit, but you can play it before or after or during your Tomb of Annihilation campaign if that's what you're playing right now, or you could set it in any port city near a jungle and use it for homebrew or whatever. So it's really nice. It's the biggest supplement the Guild Adepts have put out together to date. And it's currently we put it out there with a couple of typos and things because we needed to get it out for a certain event that was coming. It's going to go through a revision, get some of those typos and stuff smoothed out, and then it will be available as a print-on-demand product as well, so people can have the physical book of Xanathar's Lost Notes to everything else in their hand.
Well, I did find that part a little bit disappointing that it wasn't in a print demand, but it might be better to wait if you guys are going to do some revisions anyway. So because it's in the DM's Guild, it's not going to go through the same rigorous play testing, I imagine, as other products from Wizards of the Coast. But this gets heavily supported. You guys get heavily supported by Wizards. So a lot of people think it's one and the same a lot of times. Is a lot of the chatter that I've seen.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people confused about that. And, I definitely want to be clear, right? It's not in officially licensed Wizards of the Coast product. It could become one. And it could also become Adventurers League legal. I don't know that something this big with this many crazy options in it would ever become Adventurers League legal, but parts of it might become. Like, for instance, the adventure might become Adventurers League legal. The plan right now is to first we want to make sure we're being clear and we're being upfront with people. We did play test a lot of the subclasses, and all of the DM options have been play tested and that sort of thing. So we do try to play test, but it's not to the extent when Wizards of the Coast puts out an Unearthed Arcana article, right? We just don't have that amount of reach. And so the page is, the page where we're selling it hopefully is very upfront about that because it's on the DM's Guild, because we're linking to the Adepts program, which hopefully people read to understand what that is. But there's definitely some confusion, and I think one of the main places the confusion stems from is big part of the Adepts program is we're allowed to use art assets from the books, from the 5e core rule books. And so we have a cover with art from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, right? It's got a similar look. It's got all this stuff, and it looks gorgeous and it looks great. But I do think that throws people off. So we're definitely trying to be clear about what this is. Obviously, we all have the hope of like, hey, maybe this could become legal or official or that kind of thing, because that would be awesome. But at the moment, it's not. The other thing we're going to do once we get everything smoothed out and in a place where we're all really, really happy with it, we're all super happy with it now, we'll probably, starting in January, break it up a little bit. So, for instance, if the adventure did become Adventurers League legal, we might break that off and just sell it as its own thing at a reduced price. We might break up the subclasses and say, hey, here's all of the barbarian subclasses for a very reduced price. You can get that if you want it, that sort of thing. So we're still exploring how exactly we're going to break it up and what that's going to look like. But the plan is to eventually break Xanathar's Lost Notes to everything else into smaller supplements for people to check out and buy, because I think the main thing is we want people to enjoy it. We want people to see the work, the really hard work that all the adepts have put into this, because it is an awesome thing. And hopefully, people check it out, and hopefully, DMs and players get to use some of the awesome subclasses that are in there. My professional opinion as a game designer is that the classes are, the subclasses are balanced and good for play and can stand up to the other classes, but also aren't going to be like something you might find on D&D wiki where it's like, hey, now you're just a god, right? I do think that the balance is there, and people can try them out, because it's a lot of fun.
Sweet. Guys, as always, there are links in the description, including a link to Xanathar's Lost Notes. And I guess if you look around somewhere, you can actually find a coupon code from Nerdarchy for Drive Through RPG and DM's Guild. They One Bookshelf is one of our sponsors, so I'll put that in there. I'll put that in the notes somewheres. At some point. I forgot to grab it. And also, there's links to your other stuff as well. We always want to do that. So Fantasy Grounds College, they have a question, because they always have a question when someone creates content. They want to know, is there any plans to convert the stuff to virtual tabletops?
So we have had that question specifically about Fantasy Grounds. And I think, again, eventually is what I will say. I saw Rudy Rutenberg tweeting about it the other day. Someone said, will there be a Fantasy Grounds copy? He said, I think I know just the people for this. Certainly we have adepts who are adept at doing that. So yes, we will definitely be pursuing that under some avenue. I'm a big Roll20 guy. I actually do work with Roll20. I helped break up the 5th edition books and put them into Roll20, and I wrote a starter adventure for them called The Master's Vault. So I would love to see some of this content end up on Roll20 as well. I think it's a little harder because there isn't like, you can just throw a module file for Fantasy Grounds up on the DM's Guild like you would a PDF. Roll20, because it's all online, it all exists through the application, which you access through your web browser. I don't know that code has been cracked yet, how to get DM's Guild stuff onto Roll20 and still also have it on the DM's Guild. But I don't know if anybody's working on it, but hopefully someone is.
Well, that's what I was going to say too, because the DM's Guild is very specific about only being able to be in that marketplace with that product. You can't take it outside.
Exactly.
So I think with the Fantasy Grounds stuff, it might be a little bit different, because you're buying it there and downloading it and kind of uploading it. So I don't know how any of that works.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. That is exactly how it works. Is Fantasy Grounds, you load a file into your app, and with Roll20, it just doesn't work that way. Roll20 has their own marketplace that you can buy stuff on. And I know Fantasy Grounds does too, but Fantasy Grounds,
you can separate them.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't do that with Roll20, at least to my knowledge. But yeah, I mean, Roll20's got some awesome, amazing stuff as well. So yes, I would say to make a long answer longer, yes, we're thinking about virtual tabletops. And
as always, they always throw Rob Tui's hat in the ring. They love that guy.
Oh yeah, great dude.
Rob Tui's a good guy. We had him on the show. Mm-hmm. So Jim Davis of WebDM fame is in the chat, and he wants to know who made the Dragoon. I think I know. Can I throw out my guess? I believe it was Rudy, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Rudy Rutenberg made the Dragoon. So yeah, Dragoon is like a mounted fighter for people who are interested. It's a subclass. It's really great. Really, really well put together. And in fact, there's a free preview of it that I believe went up on the Wizards of the Coast website as well. So if you're interested in the Dragoon, you should definitely check it out. It's a really well made class.
So Elfbait asked the question, and I hope you're all right. You didn't have like a seizure or something in the middle of it, because it's like fine. Just exactly how do you become a guild adepts, right? And then it looks like some Cthulhian writing status. So obtain that status, I believe, is what he's asking, though.
Sure. So, I'm part of the first round of Guild Adepts, and I know that they will add people to the ranks as time continues. Robert Aducci was added, and he's awesome. The way to do it is to publish content on the Guild. And to keep publishing content on the Guild, publish good stuff, publish stuff. They're taking a look at things that sell, but they're also taking a look at stuff that makes a splash and that sort of thing. So, I would say get out there, publish on the Guild. If you go to worldbuilderblog.com and scroll down, I have a guide to getting started on the DM's Guild if anybody needs that about helping you find art, helping you put together a PDF and that sort of thing. I was very fortunate that because of my blog, I had a lot of stuff sort of ready to go in the early days of the DMs Guild. So I threw a lot of that stuff up there that had been on my blog, and because it was the early days of the DMs Guild, it did very well. If you were to look at it now, you'd be like, this layout is terrible. This art is horrible. What is this? But there wasn't that much on there at that point. So I was very lucky to have that stuff sort of ready and waiting to go. But I will say that take a look at what other people are doing. Take a look at what previous adepts have done and go ahead and do that. And then also get plugged in. There's a bunch of communities on Facebook, the Dungeon Masters Guild fan club, the Dungeon Masters Guild Creators Circle, where there's a community of people willing to help you out. MT Black, who is constantly in like the #1 spot for his adventure collections, for Elminster's Guide to Magic, like that dude is always on those forums and always willing to help people out because he's one of the nicest people of ever. So I would say start publishing, publish early, publish often, and publish good stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find really impressive about the direction Watts is taking in and how do you say that? How do you say the acronym?
I say WOTC.
Yeah, we say it wrong. We get yelled at. We've gotten some hate over that.
You can't say it like it's however you want to say it. It's a made up thing. You can say Watsa. You can say Watk if you want. I know what you mean.
But I guess we never heard them say it. But no, what I'm saying, where I was getting to is I'm loving the communities that they're building. I mean, they're streaming D&D on Twitch every day. The DMs Guild. I didn't even think they were going to do an OGL. Really, I was completely wrong on that one.
No, yeah. It seemed like that was never going to come out, but I was so glad it did because it's certainly changed my life. So
people were making stuff anyway, so I guess it was like, well, I guess we might as well.
Right, exactly.
it just cut down the amount of dancing, and I thought the DMs Guild was brilliant on their part. Like it becomes this breeding ground for new writers and talent for them to pull from. It becomes another stream of revenue for them as a company. And let's face it, Hasbro and owns Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, and then you have the D&D property, which is like a drop in the bucket next to it. And I've always worried that we're going to lose D&D because it's just not profitable enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really smart. It is a really smart way for the OGL and DMs Guild, right? DMs Guild obviously brings in revenue for them, which I think is really good. But it also allows creators, like you said, to sort of put their stuff up there, make a splash, get noticed by Wizards of the Coast. And Wizards of the Coast does take note. Those people end up in Dragon Plus. They end up as Adventurers League writers. Will Doyle, who's one of the Adepts, helped write Storm King's Thunder and Tomb of Annihilation. So they are looking for writers there. They are finding new writers who are working on products there, which is really cool. But it also then allows them to, they have this great release model that I really love where they put out 3 books a year. And it allows them to continue that model, and people who are hungry for content can still find great content on DMs Guild or through these third-party publishers, right? Like Tome of Beasts is one of the most amazing books ever for 5th edition from Kobold Press, and it's in my DM go bag. I always have it ready to go because it's doubles the amount of monsters I have. And Wizards of the Coast didn't need to do anything to, fill that monster hole in my heart. They didn't need to take resources away from other books. They didn't need to, so it was great. And Kobold Press got to make an amazing thing and be recognized for it. So
I just wish D&D Beyond would start adding some third-party stuff so I don't have to freaking carry that book.
I
I mean,
know.
it's great if I need to stop a bullet or something, but
I know. So I play, obviously, I feel like I'm shilling for Roll20 here, but I play a lot of my games on Roll20. And so what's nice is they do have a lot of third-party stuff and are inputting third-party stuff. So that's really great. The other thing that's great about the Adepts program is they give us a PDF of the book, which is not a thing you normally get from Wizards of the Coast.
no, no.
So it's pretty cool to be able to have that and to show up to a game and have, Tomb of Annihilation on my iPad and be like, I can run it from here rather than lugging the book around with me. So that's great too.
I think when we had Rudy on, he looked something up in Xanathar's guide. And it was before it even came out because you guys had the early access and PDFs, which is a nice little perk.
It is. It's a great little perk, and it's great because we need it to do the job. We need to have early access to the book because the idea is to create content that supports the book for the DMs Guild as soon as we possibly can. We shoot for day one. We didn't quite hit it with Xanathar's Lost Notes because it was such a big book and a big effort for us. But I think you'll see a lot of day one content, meaning that like when the book becomes available at your local friendly game store, D&D Beyond, Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, yada yada, you'll also see a bunch of Adept products drop the same day. Day one DLC, I don't know if you know this, has like a really bad connotation around the video game market, because essentially it means like your game is incomplete and here's the rest of it. That is not what we mean or Wizards of the Coast means. It's just a pretty good analogy to say here's extra content that's coming the same day the book is released.
It's the opposite. You get the full thing plus more if you want it. One of the things I was thinking when you were talking about the release schedule for Wizards of the Coast, compared to some other companies, I find like that release schedule is really prompting companies to come to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons because there's more of a need, there's more of a hunger in the consumer here, and they're leaving brands that they've been making products for years because it's just not as profitable for them because they have to compete against that company plus everyone else that's putting out the third party. So when I talk to different publishers, they're like, yeah, we're pretty much moving to 5e now.
Yeah, I think it's true. And some games are getting longer in the tooth, right? Pathfinder, you could have a zillion books for. You could make you could spend like your entire life making a level 1 character going through the pages of every single book and all of the character options, and that's awesome, right? Like sometimes you want to do that, sometimes you want to build a character that way.
Thank God for Hero Lab.
Yeah, exactly. Or I see you've got the 4th edition books on your shelf back there, right? Like the character builder made building a 4e character possible because there were so many options when it came to feats and powers and magic items and things like that. And so I think what's nice is in 5e you can still, sure, you can use D&D Beyond and all the awesome tools that exist for it, which I love, but you can also still build a character by hand. And they are also sort of getting this idea through the Adventurers League into people's head that like the idea we have is you'll use the core rule books plus one other book to build your character, right? Like we have not balanced the game for you to pull out the Elemental Evil Player's Companion, Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, and Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and Volo's Guide to Monsters, and use all of them together. You certainly could, right? And it's probably not going to affect the balance of your game too much, but it is cool to be able to say like I as a DM have this guideline. I know Wizards of the Coast has my back on this. This is the way we're going to run this game. And the thing that I love about it is we don't have the bloat that could slow down D&D or make it really hard for new players to come in. Like I know in the 4E days, I'd be at my local friendly game store. A new player would come in and see the stack of books and would just be intimidated. Like 3 core rule books is intimidating in itself. One player's handbook that's over 300 pages is intimidating, right? And so I think we get more new players, and you saw that they just announced Xanathar's Guide to Everything is the fastest selling D&D book ever. And it's because so many people have gotten on board with 5th edition, thanks to streamers, but also thanks to the fact that it has a lower level of entry 3 years in than other editions of the game have had.
Yeah, they've just put so much thought into this edition. When Mike was on the show and he told that story of being at a convention and observing a couple of young people looking at other people playing the game and going, the one kid going, "Oh, this game looks a lot of fun," and the other kid looking over the table and going, "Yeah, but it looks really expensive."
Mm-hmm.
And it clicked in his mind that, oh, this is a barrier to entry, and so not only just for like getting the DMs back, but for accessibility, like you said, of not having a table full of books and overwhelming someone that might want to join the hobby, but now they're looking at it and it's like, oh, the Great Wall of D&D books has kept them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, doing 3 books a year cuts down on some other things, right? It definitely cuts down on the expense, even at $50 a pop, right? You could buy 3 books at $50 a pop over the course of a year and spend $150, or you could buy a $20 book every month and you're spending more money. So I think that is a great thing about them. You also get increased quality. I really do believe that, right? There's less typos in the books. Things have been time to be like thoroughly vetted and play tested and laid out well. And so I really love that too, that you end up with a product that you're like proud to have on your shelf, that you then don't have like for 4E. I must have had a really thick 3-inch 3-ring binder filled with pages of errata, right? Because it was like every book that came out, they put out 1 book a month and then be like, here's the errata for it. We forgot numbers here. This whole power is just broken. This magic item doesn't work the way we said it does, yada, yada. And so that was really hard too. I think when you give people the time it takes to actually create these books, you end up with really cool stories in the adventures. You end up with subclasses that people need and the community has time to play test and give feedback on. So that's one of the things I really love about
you've really seen the difference from when Wizards of the Coast was still kind of crunched to getting out the core material, to when like you could see when they got the breather right around Curse of Strahd. They started pulling things more in-house. They were outsourcing the adventures. Now, some of those adventures are really cool, but I just feel like from Curse of Strahd on, they've just gotten so much better since they've brought it in-house.
Sure. Yeah. I think those first 3 adventures, adventure paths, I guess, because Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat are technically 2 different ones, right? They were still making the core rule books, right? And so I think those designers, in addition to not being in-house at Wizards, so whatever communication sort of issues existed, but then also working with rule set after rule set after rule set and revising the adventure and then revising the adventure, I think sort of took its toll a little bit. And those are great adventures. I'm playing through Rise of Tiamat right now. Love it. Princes of the Apocalypse is super fun. Out of the Abyss, amazing. Who doesn't love Orcus, right? But I agree with you. Curse of Strahd is great. Storm King's Thunder feels like you're playing Skyrim because it's, so epic and expansive and everything. And Tomb of Annihilation does exactly what it set out to do, which is be D&D on hard mode, and I have faith that stuff coming up is going to be just as fun and interesting. The other thing those adventures do is they sort of rolled them out perfectly in that, like, they rolled them out for like, hey, here's an adventure that the story concept is really easy to grasp. A bunch of cultists are trying to bring back Tiamat. There's going to be dragons. There's going to be hijinks, yada, yada. If you had started with Tomb of Annihilation, I think people would have lost their minds. They would have been like, what? This isn't D&D. This is so hard. This is so harsh, blah, blah, blah. But 3 years in, when people have really started to figure out the game, when players have started to discover, I can build a creature with a character with an AC of 50, whatever it is, it's like, okay, here's the D&D, the gritty, hard, awesome, pulpy adventure, and there's a death curse and you can't come back from the dead. What do you think? Like, they're really smart about when they're going to release stuff and the timing of that, which I really like.
Absolutely. And now our personal group, we play like no adventures ever. We buy them all, but we never run them. We
Sure.
just like,
Sure. Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was so happy when I used pixie dust from Thunder. It's like, that's a good use of $50.
It's true, but I mean, if they're fun to read, obviously for what you do, right, for your job, it's good for you to have them and read them. And I run a lot of homebrew stuff too. You know, my blog is all about the homebrew world I created. Why would I do all that work if I wasn't going to play in that world, right? So I feel I don't often play the adventures start to finish as well, but I love having them on hand, and I also love having them for dungeons, right? Like I can drop a dungeon and hey, guess what? It's got goblins instead of kobolds, and now we're good to go, right? So that's I love having sort of the lazy dungeon master in me loves having that stuff to pull from.
Steal all the things.
Absolutely.
So let's jump in the chat here for a question. Moshhard question: with so much out there between third-party publishers and DM's Guild, how much DM's Guild material do you find yourself reading?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. I read a lot of it. I try to check out bestsellers, particularly when they're at the top for a long time. I read a fair amount of Adventurers League adventures because I write for them and I want to know what they're doing and what's going on. And I also, those are great things to steal from and drop into your game. So I recommend checking out those. And then I have a lot of friends who are on the guild. So in addition to all of the Guild Adept stuff, which I am reading and checking out, I am also then, Tony Patrica, Jeff Stevens, MT Black, Merrick Blackman, checking out a lot of their stuff as it goes up. So those are the things I check out sort of on a regular basis. And then sometimes people will email me or contact me and ask me to check out stuff for them, which is really nice and incredibly generous. They'll send me a free copy, which they don't have to do. So you people who are doing that, you are amazing. And I'll try to check those out as well and give feedback where I can.
That part I find really difficult because we have a lot of people send us stuff to check out.
It is, and I don't always get to it because just for time reasons, right? If somebody hits me in a particularly busy week, it's like I just I'm not going to have the time to check this out or whatever. So if you have emailed me and I haven't gone back to you, I'm very, very sorry about that, and I still appreciate it because it is hard to read all that stuff. The one thing I try to do is I try to run on a treadmill every day. And I will bring the iPad with me and I will try to read something every single day, related to RPGs. And so it's good because it gives me an excuse to read something. And it also gives me an excuse to work out, which is something I need to do to live past, 35. So, because I eat, my diet is just tasty cakes, basically.
What more do you need? What more do you need? Although running and reading at the same time sounds a little dangerous.
It is. You know what? The elliptical is great for that. It's great. I know it's not the manliest workout routine, but that's okay. Keeps you in place while you're reading your copy of Xanathar's Lost Notes and making notes for edits and stuff. So I was doing that before we put out the book.
Because you said treadmill, and I just envision you face planting on an iPad at some point.
No, yeah. There's like a holder usually that you can like put it in. So yeah.
It is safe. Shiv's the Stabba is asking the important questions today.
Oh.
If Ilminster and Mordenkainen got into a fight, who wins? So new school versus old school.
I mean, I think it depends what plane of existence they're on, right? Like if they're in Forgotten Realms, I think it's probably going to Elminster, but if they're in Greyhawk, Mordenkainen probably has the upper hand. So that's my cop-out answer.
There you go. Depending where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though I started in first edition, I'm going to have to go with Ilminster just because I feel like he's been in my consciousness far more often. And I used to love reading Dragon Magazine, and
Yes.
and the sage of Shadow Dow.
I do think if you look at Storm King's Thunder and you read like more recent Forgotten Realms novels Ed Greenwood has put out, Elminster sounds like he is way more powerful than Mordenkainen at the moment. Not that Mordenkainen isn't powerful, just Elminster can like he's basically a god at this point. He can do all kinds of stuff.
Meet Moo, what do you guys think the next book is going to be from Wizards? You probably actually talked to them, so you probably can't really talk or guess or whatever, because it might not even be a guess. I've been trolling and stalking and following Dan Dillon because I know he's done some writing on the next one. I'm waiting for him to slip, but he claims he's too good and he will not slip. But he does a lot of posting. I'm just waiting for one of those like late night, bleary eyed Facebook posts. Maybe he's not as aware.
This is what I will say. I know what Dan knows, and I'll just leave it at that. So
you don't want they don't want the Wizards of the Coast legal gremlins to come out.
No, definitely not. I do think, like you said, because we were in contact with them for Adept stuff, and it's our job to think ahead. I will say, I think people will be very happy. I think what I was talking about, the trend of like putting out the right adventure at the right time, is continuing.
Who's has the most responsibility for that? Like, who's picking the winners?
You mean as far as who's picking the adventures that are being?
Yeah. The direction, is that by committee or?
So I believe the way it works is, Chris Perkins he's like the story director is his title, and so I believe he comes up with ideas and then pitches those ideas to the rest of the D&D team, and Nathan Stewart is sort of, it sounds like, the final sign off, because he's he's the director of the entire brand of Dungeons and Dragons. That is how I imagine it works. I'm not I'm not in on that process, but I think that's sort of how it goes, that Chris Perkins is cooking up the stews, and then people are saying, yeah, that sounds awesome, or let's tweak it a little bit and do it this way, or that kind of thing. I know he also brings in consultants. Pendleton Ward was brought in for Tomb of Annihilation, so I know that, if you see pictures of certain people, on various Instagrams or Twitters, and they're going to WotC and they're famous,
Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention, because they're probably there to consult for something.
That's really interesting too, going back to like even going a little bit beyond, not playing other RPGs, but looking outside of the niche to get ideas, to get fresh perspective on what we do and adding some value to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's funny. I worked for a guy when I was making TV commercials full time. A guy who said, it's great to watch other television commercials to get inspiration, but what you should really be doing is you should be like going to a textile factory and seeing how they make shirts. And then that should inspire the next TV commercial you make, because then you'll bring something totally fresh into the field. And I think that's totally true, right? Like, yeah, it's great to read what role-playing game designers are doing, but read other fiction, go see movies, go see books, go have your own real life adventure. And let that sort of inspire what you create as well. Is great philosophy.
So Truemate has a question. Do you have a favorite spell from Xanathar's?
Ooh, a favorite spell from Xanathar's. Man, there is a lot of good stuff to choose from. Let me just make sure that what I'm about to say actually ended up in there. Because I also remember the playtest. Oh, you know what? I love Toll the Dead. I think that's a great spell. We need more spells that deal necrotic damage, and that one is really, really fun. So Toll the Dead, that's my favorite. What about you?
Steel Wind Strike all the way.
Oh, all right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
But I'm also playing a Gish, and when I finally got that spell, it was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love one of the things I love about supplements is when they beef up areas, right, that are maybe a little lackluster, right, like spells for people who are gishes, you know, and so it's great to see that kind of stuff come out.
Yeah, it has actually, like, the way the spell works has zero effect as to whether if you're effective at fighting or not. But it's a cool idea, and the fact that you can attack 5 opponents for 6d10 force damage in a round. And if you happen to be a fighter too, so the first time I ever used it, there were 5 opponents, and I action surged and used it twice in the same round. So 10 attacks. One of them was a crit. It was a lot of D10s.
Wow. I love that. That's awesome. Isn't it great when you crit with a big spell like that? It's just so satisfying.
Yeah, my first round of double casting it was great. And then on the second round, like, I missed most of the attacks. But yeah, what are you gonna
do? I was running the starter set for somebody once, and there's that green dragon in the starter set. It was her first time playing D&D, and she cast inflict wounds and crit on the dragon, and it was like there was like a cheer that went up from the table and everything. It was so awesome, and she was hooked. She was hooked on D&D for life. So yeah, I love doing that. That's great.
And from that moment on, she never played anything but a cleric.
Exactly.
So Jim Davis wants to know if you have some of your favorite AL adventures.
Oh, all right, cool. Well, let's dig into it. First, you should obviously check out Fester and Burn from me, James Introcaso, currently available on the DMs Guild. Not because it is my adventure, but because it actually leads into 2 other really, really amazing adventures. The first is the one that comes after that is called Rotting Roots. And all joking aside, this is one you should definitely check out. It comes from Lisa Chen, who's another one of the DMs Guild Adepts as well. And I don't want to give too much away, but it is a really weird, fun, challenging adventure with a lot of undead and surprises.
Well, when she's on next week, she can tell us about it herself.
Oh, yeah. You should ask her about it. And just mention the words Tyrannosaurus and Rex and see what she has to say, because it's pretty cool. And then Putting the Dead to Rest is from Cindy Moore, who is also an adept. Really great adventure that sort of caps it off. Her villain is so cool in that adventure as well. So I recommend checking those out. From season 2, there's an adventure from a guy named Mike Shea, who is my good friend, and he's Sly Flourish, the lazy dungeon master, as he's known. It's called The Drowned Tower. That is something that you definitely want to check out. Anything by Alan Patrick, anything by Robert Aducci, anything by Teos Abadia is going to be great. Definitely check those out. And I think probably the Will Doyle adventures, Rich Lescaflair, those 2 are great authors, and Sean Merwin he has written basically for every season a series of encounters, a series of sort of 1-hour adventures that each season can be bundled into 1 5-hour adventure if you want to, or you can play them an hour at a time. Those are great to have, especially because you can just drop them right in to whatever it is you're doing. So definitely check out those. And then my last recommendation is specific. It's 1,000 Tiny Deaths. It's by Travis Woodall. Check that out. It is a super, super fun Adventurers League adventure.
1,000 Tiny Deaths. Does that involve pixie murder?
It does not involve pixie murder, but it does involve a tiny creature that everybody loves, kobolds. Yeah.
What's not to love about a kobold, or 7 or 8
or 1,000
or 1,000, as the case may be? So I for one of my games, I created a sports game called Rat Ball, played by kobolds.
I love it.
they would sew dead rats together and have these almost like lacrosse sticks that they would use to pass. pass the ball back or the rat ball back and forth and try and score. And so there was a couple of kobold tribes, and this is how they would settle their disputes with each other.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Ball of rats.
And that's like the great thing about our hobby too. Oh, and the other thing was the losing team would get sacrificed to their living god thing. So, they're kobolds.
Minor detail I forgot.
Yeah, minor detail. So the lure is this god thing, basically belched up the first rat ball.
Mm-hmm.
And imparted rat ball to the kobolds.
I love it. That's awesome. I want to steal that for my game, so I will steal all the things.
Steal all the things, yeah. Adiag version of a hairball. So
that's awesome.
This is just the best time to be alive and be a gamer.
It really is. It really is. There's so many good things coming out. D&D is like the social stigma of it is basically washed away in a lot of places. And more people are getting involved. You're seeing all kinds of people come into this community, which is great. The more people we have playing, the more accessible it is to everybody. The more shops that are running it, the more conventions there are, the better it is for everybody. The more money that goes into this hobby, the more cool stuff they're going to make with it. So, I, for one, am all about it.
I'm going to grab one more question before we bug out of here from Duel 18. What class or subclass do you think needs to be made that has not been made yet officially or by any known homebrew? I'll tackle this one real quick. I am like the worst for this, and because I'm like, you don't need anything else. It's all there. Like I can make it from what's there.
It's hard, right? Yeah. So do you have anything in particular, or that's your answer? You're like,
that's kind of my answer. Like, it isn't often, like, I think 5th edition makes it a lot easier with the subclasses, but
mm-hmm.
But when people say, well, we need this class or that class, I really feel like after we get like we're done for classes, I can't imagine what you couldn't do with a subclass. And I also kind of liked when they were bringing back prestige classes, but it's kind of like falling on the wayside. I just thought that was a really blocky mechanic that works really good with a bunch of blocky mechanics. That is 5th edition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is very, very true. That those sort of blockier mechanics are fun. I do feel like there's been a lot of stuff created, and a lot of what I contributed to Xanathar's Lost Notes are actually the DM options. Because I have a similar problem where I think about like, what's a new subclass that needs to be made, and then I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I could make that this way. And then so I don't pursue it, right? But what I do love is that I do think all of the classes other people came up with. I did the Fey Sorcerer, which which Rudy came up with. He said, hey, you should make a Fey Sorcerer. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, so I do think there are things out there that I'm just not necessarily thinking of. I would love to see... as far as these things go, there was a 4th edition class called the Invoker that I really liked. It was sort of they were the controller divine powered character, right? And I'd love to see some sort of very destructive power that is related to a god, so maybe like a destruction domain for a cleric or something like that. I think could be really, really cool, and I would love to see that made.
I will say you did make me think of one.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see a warlord from 4th edition come back.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see that the Battle Master has like some warlordy powers, right?
Yeah, but it's not quite there.
Yeah, I'd love to see the warlord come back, and I'd I know that's a sort of a divisive issue, but like, man, I loved warlords. I played a warlord in 4E. So much fun. Oh god, that Bravura warlord was so good.
I don't know that I played any 4E like as a player. I don't know that I actually played. we dipped into it for about 18 months, I want to say, and played for a while, and then kind of moved on to a Mutants and Masterminds kick for a couple years before coming back to fifth edition.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you. Mutants Masterminds is pretty great too. Yeah, I played a lot of 4E. I played 4E. I played a lot of third. I played a lot of fourth. I played 2 campaigns, levels 1 to 30 in fourth. I ran, and then I also played a lot of one shots, and I played Wednesday night D&D encounters for a long time, and so yeah, I played a ton of fourth.
I just got booed by Cardboard Fortress. I'm not sure what exactly for. Maybe they don't like the Warlord. I don't know. I know Anthony from Cardboard Fortress 4E's his jam.
Oh, there you go. Maybe
Hey,
food for not playing enough 4E.
yeah, well, we played it for a year and a half, but I really like. We ended up playing Mutants and Masterminds, and playing a Supers game, and playing a Dresden Files game, and a fantasy game.
I mean, they're great. There's so many great games out there. One of my favorites is Phoenix Dawn Command. Keith Baker, dude who invented Eberron, just put it out. It is card based. You have like these decks of cards that come with the game, but the way you level up is you die. So you can't increase your character's power without dying and making like a super heroic sacrifice, and then you're reborn more powerful. But you also only can die and come back 7 times. So as you increase your power, you're also getting closer to the end of that character's story. So it creates a really interesting tension there. It is super, super fun. People should check out Phoenix Dawn Command. But yeah, there's so many great games. Shadow of the Demon Lord. I could just talk about this forever. I'm not going to hold you up.
Yeah. I find we have far too little time and so many great games out there that we just haven't gotten to. For a while, we had one of our players would just run short campaigns for different games for us, and that was really great.
Yeah.
We played Star Wars, Cypher System. What else did we play? I feel like there was something else in there, but it's just it just made it easy for us to jump into new games and play something, because I'm kind of like, I really hate like reading rule books, to be honest with you. Some of them are way better than others to read, and then some of them it's kind of like you're just reading mechanics and rules, but I don't learn well that way. And for me, it's like, yeah, you're right, Doug. Gamma World was the other one. I knew there was something else in there, which was based off of the 4E, and I just learn better by like, what, here, help me set up a character, or I'll figure out character creation and set that up, and let's play the game, and I'll tell you what I want to do, and you tell me what I need to roll.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best way to learn. And it's one reason I think actual plays are great, because they're bringing more people into the hobby, because it's more fun to listen to people play and watch people play than read a rule book, which I don't think we knew. I think 20 years ago, it would have been like, I don't want to watch people play. Oh, how boring, but it's definitely drawn more and more people in, which is great.
Well, yeah, even when we started the channel, like, we were kind of like, well, we know we have to do some live plays because we have to show people we play the game, and I know some people like watching that kind of thing, but when we started doing it, I really didn't get it. And our live our live play games that we record, the production is really crappy, but still like 500,000 people will watch it. I think the first one we put up has like over 150,000 views on it, and I was like, wow. And when people now talk to me and go, I want to stream, but this or that, I'm like, dude, it doesn't even matter. Just throw it up there. People, there's an audience for it somewheres. You can get better later if that's what you really feel like you need to do.
Definitely. That's so true. It's funny, Tabletop Babble, we've got a ton of episodes where it's people talking about this, like you and me, but one of our most popular episodes is an actual play of Cthulhu 1-to-1. So it's like, you just never know. You just never know what's gonna hit. So yeah, absolutely.
That is true. So we are past the hour mark. If you just want to leave the audience with something, and guys, check the description, check those links.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave you guys with this. This is something I say at the end of all of my podcasts. RPGs are like sex. As long as everybody's having fun, you're doing it right. So, you know, that's my advice is just make sure you're having fun. Everybody else is having a good time. There's no wrong way to play these things if that's the result. So you're doing
Now
it.
the 13-year-old in the chat just dropped our head. No, well, funny story with that is like when we finally did go to a convention and we like met one of our fans and he played at every one of the games we ran, right? And we each ran like 2 games. And he was like 11 and he's like, I watch your show. And I'm like looking at his dad, why do you let him watch our show?
Hey, you know, he's just a mature, he's got distinguished tastes, loves, you know, role-playing games. That's the way to go. So I'm sure he's seen worse on the internet. So
Probably. But it's like with my own kids. I want them to get their bad habits from elsewhere. So
of course. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for hanging out. We've been like 90 to 100 people in the live chat the whole time, which is really cool. And guys, until next time, stay nerdy.
Thank you so much, man.